On a Friday night in 2008, Anthony Russell, a North Dublin career criminal, was enjoying drinks with friends at the Ardley Inn. Suddenly, two masked men entered the pub, causing immediate alarm. One of them opened fire, creating a scene of panic and chaos. Russell was targeted and shot multiple times in the upper body before the gunman fled in a silver Nissan Almera. The vehicle was later discovered in a laneway behind some houses on Maryfield Drive, just a stone's throw from the pub. Inside the car, authorities recovered a handgun. Despite being rushed to Beaumont Hospital, the father of two succumbed to his injuries an hour and a half later. Russell, who was set to marry the following month, had escaped a previous gun attack at his home 2 years prior, indicating a constant awareness of the danger surrounding his life. He was a member of the gang led by Christy Griffin, who had been sentenced to life in April 2007 for raping a young girl. This gang specialised in various illicit activities, including drug trafficking, armed robberies, and hijacking, often collaborating closely with the Provisional IRA. However, Griffin's involvement in the rape unleashed a chain reaction within his gang. The revelation stirred up tensions, leading to a schism and triggering a violent feud among criminals from the Sheriff Street area. This internal conflict quickly escalated, resulting in a spree of violence within the North Inner City. The aftermath was marked by numerous casualties, including multiple murders and grenade attacks. Following Russell's death, Gardaí conducted various searches and arrested over a dozen people. Shockingly, one of those questioned about the murder was only a teenager. It was 17-year-old Jason Buda Molyneux, who would soon become known to Gardaí for his involvement in serious and organised crime. Buda started his criminal career when he was just 13, initially getting into petty crime. However, by the time he was 17, he was a gun for hire, believed to have been part of the hit team behind the 2008 slaying of Anthony Russell. And that wasn't even the first time his involvement in a murder was suspected. 2 years earlier, when he was just 15, he was implicated to have been involved in a plot to kill another rival. On that occasion, wearing a bulletproof vest, he leapt out of a car and barged into the St. Mary's Mansions flats complex. Gardaí suspected he had been sent in to search for targets during the ongoing feud in the north of the city. However, the 15-year-old, who was also a prolific joyrider back then, was shocked to run into two police officers, who eventually arrested him for driving a stolen motorbike. Buda quickly gained notoriety as one of Dublin's most dangerous criminals, fueled by his obsession with weapons. With a staggering 120 criminal convictions under his belt, ranging from drug possession to knife offences and theft-related charges, he earned a reputation as an exceptionally violent individual. Despite never being formally charged in connection with Russell's murder, Buda went on to become a prime suspect in 4 other Dublin gangland killings. These included the assassination of Mad Mickey Devoy in January 2014, the execution-style killing of Kinahan associate Michael Keogh in 2017, and the tragic double murder of Devoy's sister and an innocent friend that same year. Buda maintained close ties with the Hutch family, particularly with Derek Coakley Hutch, who was the nephew of the monk. In 2016, Buda was caught in possession of a stolen motorbike believed to be earmarked for use in a gangland hit against the Kinahan mob, who were deeply entrenched in a violent feud with the Hutch family. 2 years later, on January 20th, 2018, Derek became the 14th casualty of the enduring Kinahan-Hutch feud, which had plagued the country for years, resulting in the loss of 18 lives. Derek, a 27-year-old father of 2, arrived at the Bridgeview halting site on the Clover Hill Road around 3 p.m. in a vehicle accompanied by 2 other men. As they exited the car, Derek remained inside when suddenly another vehicle pulled up alongside. At least 3 shots were fired at Derek from close range, striking him in the head and in the arm. Despite the swift arrival of emergency services, shortly after the alarm was raised, Derek was pronounced dead at the scene. His funeral was scheduled for the following week, with the wake being held on Buckingham Street Upper near his friend Buda's home. Naturally, Buda attended the wake, intending to carry the coffin of his slain friend during the funeral. Little did he realise, he would be next in line. After attending the wake, Buda returned home where he lived with his mother and sister. However, around 8:45 p.m, Buda left, saying he was meeting a friend at nearby James Larkin House. Moments later, a Renault Kangoo van approached, carrying a 2-man hit team. Buda was shot up to 13 times at close range, just a short distance from his house. Despite being officially warned by the Gardaí, Buda was not wearing his bulletproof vest at the time of the attack. His mother disclosed that he had refrained from going out earlier in the day due to concerns about people watching their home and keeping track of his movements. Later, when attempts to reach her son went unanswered, Miss Molyneux got worried and left the house to go and look for him. As she prepared to leave, she heard a loud bang. Hastening to put on her boots, she moved out to the balcony and saw about 4 flashes coming from the James Larkin flats. In a moment of defiance, she shouted at the suspected gunman, labelling them a dirty scumbag, before rushing to her injured son's side. Upon reaching Buda, she asked him who had shot him, but he remained silent. He was rushed to Mayo Hospital, where he was pronounced dead shortly thereafter. The gun responsible for Buda's demise, a Swiss-made Sphinx handgun seldom seen in Ireland, was later found inside the partially burnt-out Renault. The fact that Buda was gunned down when there was such a heavy guard of presence ahead of the funeral of his friend Derek Hutch proves how his killers were willing to take chances in order to take him out. Buda found himself in the crosshairs of the Kinahan-Hutch feud due to his association with the Hutch family. Following Derek's assassination, even while out on bail, Buda arranged a war council meeting among Hutch gang members at a pub in the north inner city. However, Gardaí suspected that another long-standing feud, predating the Kinahan-Hutch conflict, might have been the catalyst for Buda's murder. Speculation suggested that he had been marked for death upon his release from prison, with various rival gangs seeking retribution. Gardaí had issued multiple warnings to Buda about the imminent threat to his life, indicating the seriousness of the situation. The leading theory behind the motive for Buda's murder suggests it may be linked to his connections with individuals suspected of trying to murder criminal Derek Boteler Devoy. Tragically, instead of Devoy, his innocent sister Antoinette Corbally Devoy and pal Clinton Shannon, also innocent, were shot dead when 2 gunmen stormed through the mother of 6's house in Ballymun in August 2017. 3 years prior to this double murder, Buda is believed to have been the gunman who fatally shot Boteler's brother Michael, Mad Mickey Devoy. Michael was gunned down shortly after his release from a brief prison sentence. It's suspected that Buda's killing might have been an act of revenge for Michael's murder. Michael was the chief suspect for shooting at a group of people leaving a party at a Dublin pub in 2013. Nobody died in that shooting, but Kinahan drug dealer Greg Lynch suffered a head wound and 3 bystanders were injured. Lynch initially blamed Boteler Devoy for the attack, and while Michael Devoy's murder remains unsolved, Gardaí believe criminals linked to the Kinahan-Hutch feud killed him in revenge for shooting one of their number. Despite being a suspect in Michael's killing and undergoing questioning by the Garda, Buda was released without charge and never faced prosecution in connection to the murder. Nonetheless, Devoy's Ballymun-based associates kept Buda responsible for his death, leading Gardaí to explore the possibility of Buda being targeted by this faction. After thorough investigation, Gardaí ultimately concluded that Buda fell victim to a coordinated effort involving multiple individuals working in collaboration with the gunman. Several arrests were made in connection to the investigation, but to this day, no one has ever been charged in relation to Buda's death. On a sunny August afternoon in 2017, a peaceful community housing estate in Ballymun, a Dublin's outer suburb, was the backdrop for one of Ireland's most shocking gangland incidents. While kids played outside and residents went about their daily activities, Derek Boteler Devoy, a convicted drug dealer, stood in the front garden of his mother's house, holding a baby in his arms. Around 4 p.m, a silver Opel Safira pulled into the Ballybutcher Drive, and a lone gunman emerged from the car. As he approached the house, he was spotted by Derek, prompting him to quickly drop the child and flee out the back. The gunman entered the garden and discharged multiple shots before getting away. Tragically, Derek's innocent sister, who was at the doorstep, and a friend who was sitting in the car parked outside the garden, were fatally shot in broad daylight. The horrifying gun attack catapulted the Devoy family into the public spotlight. Even though Derek was the target, his sister, Antoinette Corbally, a mother of 6, and Clinton Shannon, a 30-year-old Dublin resident, were both fatally shot at the scene. Derek Devoy is a career criminal who has spent over a decade in prison for his involvement in firearms-related offences. He's the youngest of 3 brothers in the Devoy family, and the only one still alive. Known to Gardaí as a dangerous criminal, he has strong ties to paramilitary groups and various crime syndicates in North Dublin. Derek was jailed in 2007 for his involvement in an attempted armed robbery at a post office in Balbriggan the year before. He was arrested along with 4 other individuals in a convoy of vehicles. They faced charges of possessing firearms and ammunition, and Devoy was hit with a 7-year term. However, when he was out on bail, he was arrested for a drive-by shooting in 2005, targeting neighbours in the Ballymun area. At the time, the then 25-year-old leaned out of a moving car with 2 other masked individuals and fired up to 5 shots at neighbours he was feuding with. Derek was identified when a scarf covering his face slipped down, allowing a witness to recognise him. Luckily, no one was killed, and Derek was convicted of possessing a shotgun with intent to endanger life and sentenced to an additional 7 years in prison, a stretch that came on top of his existing sentence for the failed armed robbery in Balbriggan. The origins of the drive-by shooting stemmed from a conflict dating back to 2001 between 3 Ballymun families over the placement of the Devoy's wheelie bins for collection outside their homes. Initially, the dispute took the form of heated verbal exchanges, but it quickly escalated. Within weeks, it expanded to involve a 3rd family, leading Derek and his brother Michael, Mad Mickey Devoy, to arm themselves and carry out separate attacks on different neighbours over the years. In response, the Garda charged 7 members of the 3 families with various public order offences. The judge described the dispute as a Berlin Wall of hostility and handed down suspended sentences. However, any hopes that the court case would resolve the conflict was shattered 7 months later when a gun attack occurred. In May 2002, Mad Mickey threatened 2 members of one of the families, stating he would blow their heads off following another disagreement over the bins. The following month, in June 2002, a shotgun barrel was forced through the glass panel beside the family's front door, resulting in significant damage to the walls and furniture when the gun was discharged. Although members of the family were present at home during the incident, fortunately, no one was injured. Some members of the family witnessed Michael Devoy in their garden, wearing a woman's blonde wig as a disguise while he was getting into a car to escape. He was later sentenced to 4 years in prison for threatening to kill 2 of them. During his sentencing hearing, it was revealed that he was HIV and hepatitis C positive and had spent the majority of the previous 20 years in jail, leading to long periods of institutionalization. Between 1986 and his court appearance in 2006, at the age of 34, the longest period of freedom he experienced was 13 months. At one point, both Michael and Derek Devoy were incarcerated simultaneously for separate shooting incidents. Michael was briefly released after serving his sentence, but he soon committed another offence and landed back behind bars. Upon his release in 2014, he was fatally shot the next day. On Saturday, January 18th, members of the Garda interrupted unidentified individuals, dumping a body over a wall in a laneway in Tallaght. The body was identified as Michael Devoy's. He had been formally warned by the Garda that his life was at risk, which led him to wear a bulletproof vest. However, he was shot in the neck and head. The main theory is that Michael Devoy was targeted because he was suspected of being the gunman in a failed murder attempt on heroin trafficker and Kinahan cartel figure Greg Lynch 3 months earlier, outside a pub on the north side. Individuals close to Devoy believed that Jason Buda Molyneux, who was killed in 2018, and others were involved in his assassination. At the time of his brother's death, Derek was still incarcerated, serving the remainder of his prison terms for the armed robbery and drive-by shooting. Despite nearing the end of his sentence, Derek's volatile nature led authorities to deny him temporary release, even for a few hours to attend his brother's funeral. He had been constantly in trouble in prison and was segregated from other prisoners on a special wing of Portlaoise Prison for a time. Upon his release in February 2015, the Garda put in place a security operation near his Ballymun home to monitor him. They feared he wanted revenge for his brother's killing and might resume the hostilities over the rubbish bins. Gardaí also feared he might seek retribution on those who gave evidence against him for the drive-by shooting. Derek himself was concerned that he would face the same fate as his brother. Shortly after, he attracted the attention of the Garda when he attempted to transfer around €100,000 to a bank account in the UK. Following the warning about the threat to his life, Derek had fled to the UK. However, when the Garda seized his money, he was forced to return to Ireland. 2 years later, he had become involved in a localised feud with a rival drug-dealing faction in Ballymun. This dispute escalated in the form of pipe bomb attacks and several shootings, with Derek securing the support of the new INLA and other armed criminals. In 2020, Derek, who had become one of the most hunted men in Ireland's criminal underworld, was sentenced to 15 years in prison for a series of alarming weapons offences that narrowly avoided causing a massacre and the deaths of 3 police officers. In March 2019, shocked onlookers, including children, saw a paranoid Devoy fire 2 shots in the air at a busy common area in Ballymun. By then, Derek was on the run from multiple gangland enemies. After surviving the botched hit that left his sister and friend dead, Gardaí had warned him of 4 separate death threats. When unarmed police officers arrived at the scene and confronted Derek, he fled, firing a shot through his t-shirt while trying to conceal a gun. Derek then hastily busted into the home of an innocent family, fearing the pursuing officers might be hitmen like those disguised at the Regency Hotel attack in 2016. Police officers discovered him seated on the toilet in the bathroom, pointing the machine gun at them. They pounced when he lowered the muzzle, leading to a struggle in the bathtub. During the altercation, 5 shots were fired from the powerful 9mm Makarov PM-63 RAK submachine gun, and an unpinned Yugoslavian M75 hand grenade rolled across the floor. The submachine gun had a firing rate of 660 rounds per minute, and the grenade in his pocket had a lethal radius of 60 feet. One of the officers narrowly avoided being shot in the head as a bullet whizzed past his ear. Following Devoy's eventual apprehension and removal from the house, the Army bomb squad performed a controlled detonation of the hand grenade, rendering the house uninhabitable for months. Devoy has been incarcerated ever since. In the chilling October darkness of 2013, a 21st birthday bash was in full swing upstairs at Hanlon's pub in Cabra, and in a suburb on the north side of Dublin. Among the revellers lurked one of Dublin's most notorious drug dealers, Greg Lynch. As the clock ticked closer to 2:30 a.m, Lynch stepped outside to have a smoke, not aware of the looming danger ahead. As he walked onto the street, a gunman clad in dark attire and a menacing balaclava walked up to him and shot him from close range with a semi-automatic handgun. Lynch's world exploded into a symphony of pain as he was hit in the face, the force shattering his jaw. As Lynch crumpled to the ground, a chilling symphony of chaos erupted. The gunman, fueled by ruthless intent, ran across the road, unleashing a hail of bullets into the unsuspecting crowd of partygoers lingering outside. Amidst the frenzy, 3 innocent female bystanders found themselves wounded by the indiscriminate onslaught of gunfire. With the bullet still lodged in his head, Lynch was rushed to the Mater Hospital in critical condition. There he fell into a coma, and his fate hung by a thread as medical teams fought tirelessly to keep him alive. After the shooting, the gunman disappeared into the waiting embrace of a light-coloured BMW, strategically positioned by an accomplice. Soon, the pieces of the puzzle began to fall into place, revealing the sinister puppet master pulling the strings behind the shooting was none other than Europe's biggest crime lord. Curious about the identity of the criminal left clinging to life that fateful night and the motives driving such a brazen murder attempt? Join me in this video as I tell you his story. Greg Lynch, originally from the Oliver Bond Flats, has maintained a stronghold over the inner city drug trade, despite his residence shifting across various addresses in the southern part of the city. Operating from the shadows, Lynch has turned the inner city flat complex into a sprawling drug supermarket, where the innocence of childhood is tainted by the grim reality of needles and crack pipes littering the streets. Residents, gripped by fear and silenced by the looming presence of violence, have waged a silent war behind closed doors, campaigning tirelessly to cleanse their community of the drug scourge. Yet, despite the watchful gaze of 11 CCTV cameras, the complex remains a haven for dealers, where the hustle and bustle of illicit trade persists day and night amidst a landscape strewn with the remnants of addiction. Lynch's reign of illicit activity first came to a halt when members of the Garda National Drugs Unit arrested him following a significant heroin bust near the Red Cow in South Dublin back in 2003. Subsequently convicted in 2004, Lynch found himself sentenced to 8 years behind bars, with 2 suspended. After his release, Lynch, who was also a close associate of enforcers Gerard Hatchet Kavanagh and Paul Rice, soon became a pivotal figure within the notorious Kinahan cartel, holding sway over the cartel's operations on the streets of the South Inner City. Targeted by Operation GoldenEye, the Garda cracked down on the cartel, which ran parallel to Spanish probes. Lynch found himself squarely in the crosshairs of law enforcement scrutiny. By the summer of 2010, intelligence gathered by the Garda pointed to Lynch's alleged control over a huge network of 60 dealers, making him one of the most senior cartel members on Irish soil. Navigating the streets in opulent top-of-the-range jeeps, chauffeured by his personal driver, Lynch found himself firmly entrenched at the summit of law enforcement's hit list when it came to targeting senior members of the Kinahan cartel. Although the cartel didn't pioneer the exploitation of children in drug operations, they certainly perfected it. From as young as 10 years old, these vulnerable youngsters are recruited into the cartel's fold. Tasked with transporting drugs and cash on their bicycles or acting as spotters, they're groomed into the dangerous world of organised crime. If caught by Gardaí, their age often shields them from severe consequences, leaving law enforcement powerless to intervene effectively. However, those who lose drugs in a surge may be beaten or stabbed, serving as a chilling warning to others within the gang. Once ensnared in their web, escape becomes a distant dream. Utilising age-old tactics of intimidation and coercion, the cartel instills fear into individuals with no prior criminal records, forcing them into roles they never imagined. Disobedience is not an option. The repercussions are lethal. Families across Dublin's south inner city lived in perpetual fear, driven to desperate measures like remortgaging their homes to settle drug debts, all in a desperate bid to shield their children from the spectre of violence. The 2013 shooting was not the first time Lynch was targeted. In the months leading up to the attack, the convicted heroin dealer had been the subject of numerous death threats from rival factions. Just the previous December, another sinister plot to take his life had been hatched, only to be thwarted by a bungled surveillance operation by his would-be assailants. During Lynch's recovery, his cartel allies pointed fingers at drug dealer Bottler Devoy, accusing him of orchestrating the attack at Hanlon's pub in a bid to muscle in on his turf. The retaliation was swift and brutal. Bottler's brother, Mad Mickey Devoy, paid the ultimate price. In a chilling act of revenge, Mad Mickey was lured to his demise and executed with 3 fatal shots to the head and neck, his lifeless body callously dumped in a desolate laneway in Tallaght. For months, Lynch's associates were convinced they had got the right man when they killed Devoy. However, Lynch soon discovered that Devoy had been falsely accused. He had no involvement in the shooting. As an act of reparation, €100,000 in compensation was offered to Devoy's brother, Bottler. Yet, when Bottler attempted to transfer the funds to the UK, the money was intercepted by the Criminal Assets Bureau. After the Regency Hotel attack and the split in the Kinahan gang, Lynch was told that it was actually his own who had tried to kill him. Shockingly, his would-be killers were his own childhood friends. You see, that inner city flat complex where he grew up was also the childhood home to mob boss Daniel Kinahan and his brother Christopher Jr. Jean Boylan, the mother of Daniel and Christopher, spent her entire life in the flats, and her local authority home was inherited by her second partner, Harry Mallon, upon her passing in 2014. Lynch's father, Gerard Bray Brady, shared a close friendship with the godfather Christy Kinahan, who himself resided in the Oliver Bond flats for an extended period. It's within this backdrop that Greg grew up alongside Daniel and his brother, forging childhood bonds that would later be tested by the treacherous currents of the criminal underworld. Lynch soon learned that he had been targeted for elimination by Fat Freddie Thompson, yet another childhood friend. Thompson's ire stemmed from a romantic liaison Lynch had with a woman, a betrayal that ignited a deadly vendetta. Seeking approval from Daniel Kinahan, Thompson requested permission to eliminate Lynch, a request that was seemingly granted, though the motive behind Kinahan's sanction remains unclear, given Lynch's esteemed status as one of his top dealers. Surviving the assassination attempt, Kinahan and Thompson concocted a fabricated narrative, pinning the blame on Devoy and leading to the death of his brother. The tangled web of betrayal and deceit among childhood friends ultimately unraveled, leaving behind a trail of devastation and shattered loyalties. In the years that followed, Lynch chose to distance himself from his former comrades in the gang after uncovering the truth behind his near-death experience. Despite carrying the heavy scars of that fateful shooting for years, which left his face paralysed, Lynch has recently unveiled the remarkable results of extensive cosmetic surgery. Thanks to these costly procedures, he now boasts a rejuvenated appearance, looking virtually unrecognisable from his former self. Following numerous surgeries, Lynch has confidently returned to the spotlight, once again posing for photographs during his nights out, signalling his triumphant resurgence from the shadows of his past. That was it for today's video. What are your thoughts on today's topic? Let us know in the comments, and don't forget to like the video and subscribe to our channel if you'd like to see our next videos.